My husband ran off with my sister, then returned with a jaw-dropping request. 6 weeks ago, I came home from my nursing shift to find a note on the kitchen counter. Just 2 sentences in Brad's handwriting. I'm in love with Lily. I'm sorry. My husband of 4 years had left me for my younger sister. No warning, no fight, no gradual drift apart, just gone. He'd cleaned out his closet, taken his laptop, and disappeared with the person I'd trusted most in the world besides him. I called Lily immediately, and she answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting. Her voice was shaking when she said she never meant for it to happen, that they'd fallen in love and couldn't fight it anymore. I asked how long it had been going on. 8 months, she whispered. Since last Christmas, when Brad had helped her move into her new apartment. I hung up on her and spent 3 days in bed, calling out sick from work, ignoring texts from my parents and friends. Brad's family called to apologize, his mother crying and saying she'd raised him better than this. My parents were devastated but kept trying to see both sides, saying love was complicated, which made everything worse. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later via certified mail. Brad was letting me keep the house and wasn't asking for anything, which felt less like generosity and more like guilt. I signed them without reading the details and sent them back the same day. Then yesterday, Brad showed up at my door at 8 in the morning. I almost didn't recognize him at first because he'd lost maybe 30 pounds and had dark circles under his eyes that made him look sick. I stood in the doorway in my scrubs about to leave for work and stared at him like he was a stranger. Can we talk? He asked. Just 5 minutes, please. His voice cracked on the please, and despite everything, some stupid part of me that still remembered loving him felt concerned about how terrible he looked. I let him in but didn't offer coffee or a seat. He stood in my living room twisting his wedding ring, which he was still wearing for some reason. I need to ask you something, he started, and I laughed because the audacity was almost impressive. You need to ask me something? You left me for my sister, and now you need something? He flinched but kept going. It's important. Life or death important. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily, her first message in 6 weeks. Please listen to Brad. I know you hate us, but this is bigger than that. We wouldn't ask if we had any other choice. I stared at my phone, then at Brad, trying to understand what was happening. What does she mean any other choice? Brad pulled out his phone and showed me something. Medical documents with terms I recognized from my nursing training. Test results, doctor's notes, appointment schedules. Then he explained what they needed, and why they'd come back, and why it had to be me specifically. Over the next 3 days, more pieces appeared that didn't make sense. Brad's parents called, asking me to please consider their request, crying and desperate in a way that felt wrong. My parents showed up at my house with Lily, who looked as awful as Brad, thin and scared and refusing to meet my eyes. There were papers that needed signatures, appointments that required my presence, legal consultations with lawyers who kept using words like time-sensitive and irreversible and informed consent. Brad kept showing up with more documents, more test results, more proof of why this had to happen now. I started noticing things that seemed off. Brad's car had hospital parking passes stacked on the dashboard. Lily had medical bracelets from 3 different facilities. Their story about falling in love had holes in the timeline that didn't add up. The 8 months she'd mentioned didn't match the dates on the paperwork Brad kept showing me. Something bigger was happening, something they weren't fully explaining, and whatever they wanted from me was going to cost more than they were admitting. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below.